Welcome back to another live stream after a weekend where you guessed it, the Golden State Warriors still have not made a single move in free agency or via a trade or anything like that. I thought I'd still jump on though and give the latest, of course, on Jonathan Kuminga, Al Horford, and also some Summer League takeaways. So what I'll do here is I'll go for about 10 minutes or so just on those topics. And then if you guys have got any comments, any questions or whatever, then I'll get to them. I want to start with Kaminga, though, because Anthony Slater of The Athletic, he's just reported that there's nothing really going on with Kaminga. In fact, let me get the tweet up here from Slater, who is obviously the person you need to be following when it comes to everything Warriors, obviously. So he said, this is 46 minutes ago, no significant traction on the Jonathan Kaminga front over the weekend. Per sources, restricted free agency around the NBA remains ice cold. Conversations and little action. Kings have been the strongest pursuer of Warriors wing, but nothing has come close. Of course, we know Sacramento offered up a ridiculous trade package that involved Dario Saric, Devin Carter, and 2 second-round picks. The Kings stuff is what I wanted to kind of talk about here because it has been quite frustrating, and the debate. I'm all for debate on social media. I mean, that's what sport's about. But there's just too much misinformation and wrong speculation, probably going on from both sides, but particularly the Sacramento side. And I think sometimes when you're arguing about an opposition player, there is a lot of stuff that you will say that you don't necessarily know a whole heap about. And that's just facts. Like, I will try and analyze the entire league, but I find it difficult to have strong debates with hardcore fans of other teams because those fans watch their team and know the ins and outs of their team on a daily basis. And there's 30 teams across the NBA. It is very, very difficult to be able to analyze and know the ins and outs of every single team. And so some of the stuff that I feel like Kings fans have been saying about Kuminga is just flat out misinformation. It's blatantly false, or it's just coming from a perspective that doesn't really have all the information at hand. So I just wanted to respond to some of the stuff that I've seen from Kings fans on social media, which I think some of it they actually believe in, but I also think some of it they're just trying to get something out of Warrior fans, like frustrate and anger Warrior fans, and basically, put the bait out there and try and catch some Warrior fans kind of thing. So that might be what they're doing, and I'm going to take the bait right now because I want to respond to some of this stuff that I'm seeing from Kings fans and just thinking, like, what? Like, what are you talking about? So the first one for me is this idea that the Warriors don't want Kaminga. Kings fans will be like, well, you don't want him, so like, why don't you just take what you can get for him? That's just a lie. That's one of the biggest lies of the offseason. The Warriors don't want Jonathan Kaminga. Now, you can argue Steve Kerr doesn't want Jonathan Kaminga. Yeah, maybe you can argue there's a lot of Warriors fans on social media that don't want Jonathan Kaminga. Also fair. But Joe Blow down the street with 40 Twitter followers isn't a representation of the front office. Steve Kerr is the head coach. He's the head coach. He's not the general manager. He's not the owner. So the ones here that really are deciding on Jonathan Kuminga's future, does Steve Kerr have a say in it? Absolutely. But the ones that really have a say are Mike Dunleavy Jr., who's the general manager. That's his job, and he answers to Joe Lacob, who pays the bills, right? And this idea that the Warriors don't want Kuminga, then why did they reportedly offer him a 5-year, $150 million contract or extension in October? Why would they do that if they didn't want him, right? And then there's this idea that, they traded for Jimmy Butler, so that means they don't want Kuminga. That's got no part of it whatsoever. There's this idea that from Kings fans, like, they'd be going into second apron hell. Again, I don't know the ins and outs entirely of the Kings payroll situation, but they are around the exact same active cap as the Warriors are. So this idea that the Warriors would be going into second apron hell, that's not true. Like, the Warriors can re-sign Kaminga and stay under the second apron. So if the Warriors didn't want Kaminga, they would simply take the deal on offer from the Kings, wouldn't they? Like, they'd just say, well, we don't really want this guy. So yeah, sure, Devin Carter, recent lottery pick, Dario Saric in 2 seconds, that's fine, right? again, that's just a lie. The idea that the Warriors don't want Kuminga. Now, I think they want him at their own price, right? And I think they're willing and accommodating for him to explore other options, but they are going to need something of reasonable value in return here if they are going to execute a sign and trade. Kings fans, the when you respond with all that, then Kings fans, they're often like, well, if you want him, why don't you sign him, right? Well, again, it takes two to tango, right? It'd be like me saying to a mate at the pub, I love Sydney Sweeney. I want Sydney Sweeney. I want to marry Sydney Sweeney. And that mate responding to me and saying, why don't you just do it then? It's like, mate, a marriage takes two things, takes two sides, takes two signatures. Sydney Sweeney doesn't even know who I am. And so this idea that, oh, well, why don't the Warriors just sign Kaminga? It takes Kaminga to sign the contract, right? And I'm sure that Kaminga would prefer to sign that contract elsewhere at another team. He probably wants a younger team or a team like the Kings who have a wide open spot for him where he can go into a starting role, play 30 minutes, really expand his game and try and become the star player that he believes he can be. I'm sure Kaminga would prefer that. I'm sure there's probably an offer maybe on the table from the Warriors at the moment, but it's not at the number that he would like, he or his camp would like. Again, I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just speculating. There probably is some kind of deal on the table from the Warriors. And then so Kings fans would be like, oh, well, if he doesn't want to sign the contract and he doesn't want to be there, then shouldn't you just take what you can get for him at this point? Again, not true. He's a restricted free agent. It's in the saying. It's restricted. Like it restricts players from moving. Like it's literally in the saying. If it was unrestricted free agency, sure, he would have signed a contract already, probably 1 minute into free agency and been off the Warriors by now. The whole point of restricted free agency it gives the current team leverage to say, hang on a second, no, you can't just walk to a team of your choosing. We either have to agree to a sign and trade, or if you go out and sign an offer sheet, then we get to choose whether we match that and we retain you or not. And obviously right now, there's no team out there aside from the Brooklyn Nets with cap space that is going that can offer Jonathan Kuminga a huge contract that the Warriors aren't going to match. And the Nets don't seem to be keen on doing that. Another point that the Kings fans, regularly make on social media is, well, he just doesn't fit with the Warriors. He's 22 years old. He doesn't fit with what they're doing. They've got a veteran trio there. He doesn't fit with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green and Steph Curry. Well, my response is, well, yeah, like kind of. It's certainly a point. I think Warrior fans would even suggest that, Jonathan Kuminga doesn't fit perfectly with the franchise. But if I have a Ferrari, right, and my garage doesn't fit that Ferrari, I don't trade the Ferrari for a 2008 Toyota Corolla. I just don't do that. And Kings fans will be like, oh, you can't compare Jonathan Kuminga to a Ferrari. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. When the Toyota Corolla in this conversation is Dario freaking Saric. I can call Kuminga a Ferrari in that situation. So you don't just trade, even though he doesn't fit, you don't just trade a really valuable piece for 10 cents on the dollar. You do not do that. So again, like this idea that he doesn't fit, so you should just take what you can get, just completely false, right? Another one. Well, he could just take the qualifying offer and then he'd screw you over. Yes, he would. He would screw the Warriors over if he'd take the qualifying offer. But you know what? He would also screw himself over out of tens of millions of dollars. The guy reportedly rejected a 5-year, $150 million contract in October. He's not going to get anywhere near that now. Do you think he wants to lose even more money? Double down and lose even more and bet on himself again, where he could potentially fail again? How many torn Achilles injuries did we see this season? What happens if he comes back on the qualifying offer at $7.9 million and then tears his Achilles out, right? You think about, I reckon he could still get like $25 million. Maybe there's a 3-year, $75 million offer that he could get from the Warriors right now. Again, I'm just speculating that. It's a speculation. But if that was the case and he rejected that, and then he took the qualifying offer of $7.9 million, then he would have to make at least $34 million on his next contract to make that up. And in doing so, if he returns to the Warriors, he'd be putting himself at the mercy of Steve Kerr again. Because again, as I've spoken about previously, he would have to come out and play really well. And you know what? If he plays really well and actually takes the jump that the Warriors, have envisaged for a long time, and he's envisaged for a long time, then yes, it might screw the Warriors over. But in the absolute short term for next season, they'd get a hell of a steal with a player taking the jump that we're saying he could take and making $7.9 million at the same time. That'd be an incredible steal. So I just like players don't take the qualifying offer. That just doesn't happen because Kuminga would be screwing himself out of a lot of money and he's already lost a heap, right? So I just don't think that's going to happen. The final one here that emerged yesterday is after Cam Whitmore was traded to the Houston Rockets for 2 second-round picks. All right, and so Kings fans are like, well, the market's been set. The market's been set. Similarly talented, athletic young player just went for 2 second-round picks to the Washington Wizards. And you know what? Great pickup for the Wizards. That's great value. You see what Cam Whitmore can do. Let him spread his wings a little bit and see what he can become in the league. Absolutely fine. Great deal. In no way, shape, or form does that set the market for Jonathan Kaminga. I must have missed. I must have completely missed. I must have been in a coma or something when I missed the fact that Cam Whitmore averaged 25 points on 55% shooting in a playoff series against the 6th best defense in the league. Right? I must have missed that. I must have missed that. That's exactly what Jonathan Kuminga did, right? And so this idea that, Steve Kerr benched him and he got DMPs, and so therefore the market's similar to Cam Whitmore, who played a grand total of 5 minutes, and they're all in garbage time of that first round series across 7 games against the Warriors. So you can point to Kuminga getting DMPs as well, right? Absolutely. But you can't then leave out the other part of the conversation, which is he averaged nearly 25 points on 55% shooting over the last 4 games against the Timberwolves, who ranked 6th in defense this season, or this past season. So the idea that Cam Whitmore set the market for Jonathan Kuminga, again, I must have missed the point where Cam Whitmore averaged 25 points and had a 30-point game in the playoffs. Like, come on. I'm not omitting the fact that that Kaminga also had DNPs, right? I'm not omitting that fact. I think we've got to look at both. You've got to tell the whole story. You can't just look at the DNPs without looking at what he did over the last 4 games of the playoffs as well. So ultimately, this is it's a weird situation and it's a frustrating situation. But I think some of the stuff that Kings fans come up with on social media is, I don't know, it's just bait to me. Like it's just flat out, most of it's just not true. Or at the very least, there's a very, very strong argument against what they're saying, most of which I've just laid out here. Before I get into your comments, I can see a heap here. I just want to through a bit more stuff. The Al Horford latest stuff there, obviously still no signing. Mark Stein reported earlier today, though, that all points continue to point to Al Horford signing with the Warriors. I still am of the belief here that we are waiting on something to happen with Jonathan Kuminga before an Al Horford signing actually happens. I spoke about last live stream, I think, how if the Warriors were to sign Al Horford right now to the taxpayer mid-level exception at 5.7, they'd hard cap themselves at the second tax apron. Therefore, a team could potentially come in and produce a big offer sheet to Kuminga that the Warriors would not be able to match. And like legally not able to match, and therefore they would lose him. So they put themselves in a precarious position if they signed Horford beforehand, hence why that hasn't happened at this stage. It did over the weekend emerge as the Denver Nuggets being a team that could potentially steal Horford away with the uncertainty over Jonas Valanciunas. And that certainly to me arose some anxiety about the Warriors' chances of landing Horford, because I thought, well, hang on a second. If Denver lose Valanciunas to the Greek club, and then they execute a buyout right with him, and they don't have to pay him anything. He forfeits his entire money. That gives Denver the full mid-level exception at $14.1 million or whatever. So all of a sudden they've got a hole opening up at a backup center spot behind Jokic. They could offer Horford the full mid-level at 14.1, which is nearly $10 more than the Warriors, $8-9 million more than what the Warriors can offer. They can right now, you would say Denver are a much stronger contender than what the Warriors are, based on what we've seen here since the start of free agency, landing Cam Johnson, landing Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. on cheap contracts. So they'd be able to incentivize Horford with probably saying to him, we're in a better spot to be able to compete for a championship, having also just won the chip a couple of years ago as well. So between the financial stuff and the actual on-court trying to win a championship perspective, I was like, geez, if I'm Al Horford here, I'm probably pretty keen on the Nuggets, and I could see exactly why he would go to Denver over Golden State. However, Shams Charania reported today that the Nuggets fully expect, or the Nuggets are fully keen on keeping Jonas Valanciunas and making sure that he doesn't return to Europe. So it sounds like they want Valanciunas as the backup. Obviously, the trade's gone through with him and Saric. And obviously, if Valanciunas hangs around, that means that there's going to be less interest or completely no interest in Al Horford from a Nuggets perspective. So I still think that the Warriors are in a good position when it comes to Al Horford. Just some quick stuff from Summer League over the first 2 days. Warriors are 1-1. They beat the Lakers 89-84 yesterday. And then earlier today, lost to the San Antonio Spurs 90-88. So a couple of close games. Will Richard had a game-winning buzzer beater attempt that unfortunately, agonizingly, fell off the rim, but still a really positive first up performance from Will Richard, of course, the 56th overall pick. In last week's draft, he finished with 16 points, 4 rebounds, couple of steals. The shooting wasn't there, 3 of 10 from the floor, 2 of 8 from distance, and a perfect 8 of 8 from the free throw line. But I really like what he did, mostly defensively. He started the game with a kind of strip down, one of those like Andre Iguodala kind of swipe down strip. Steele went coast to coast and had the layup on the other end. So that was his first 30 seconds in a Warrior jersey, which was great to see. The box score says he only had 2 steals, but I'm pretty sure he had 3. And I really liked the 16 points were great. Getting to the free throw line and being a perfect 8 of 8 from there was great. But I think defensively it was probably the biggest positive from me because he's only 6'4", but he's got this kind of big, wide body, reasonable athleticism, and he's also got this 6'10" wingspan. And I think coming out of the draft, we saw him as a potentially younger and cheaper alternative to GP2. And if he's going to play like that and be a capable presence on both ends of the floor, I just wonder if that kind of seals the fate of GP2's future. Of course, he's still an unrestricted free agent, and the Warriors going to bring him back, or would they look at Richard as a player that's had 4 years of college, who's displayed many of the same traits we saw today? Do they seek him as a guy that could potentially contribute to the rotation next season and therefore actually have him on a guaranteed contract on the main roster rather than GP2? We'll wait and see. Going back to yesterday's game, Taran Armstrong. Look, again, the box score numbers don't jump off the page at you. He had 7 points and 6 assists, but I don't want to be too biased, coming from the same state as him, and I'm always going to have a soft spot for Taran Armstrong. But man, I thought the way that he controlled the offense yesterday and the way that he dealt with the pressure and the physicality that the Lakers threw at him, I thought was extraordinarily good. And I know that Steve Kerr would have looked at that performance and just loved, like, a guy to just set the table for you offensively. He's a throwback old school point guard. Like, he's a pass first. And that's where I think his scoring and his ability to create shots for himself, I think, is going to be a bit of a struggle. And that might be what ultimately, doesn't allow him to make it in the NBA. But his ability to set the table for others, his ability to not turn the ball over. He had 0 turnovers yesterday, 6 assists, 0 turnovers. And that's just a continuation of what we saw in Santa Cruz late in the G League season, where I think he averaged 8 assists and 2.5 turnovers. So really high assist to turnover ratio. And again, the Laker defense, there was a lot of pressure on yesterday. They came out from the opening tip and played really, really aggressive on-ball defense. And his ability to play through that and not have a single turnover in the game, I thought was excellent. So I think a better performance from Taran Armstrong than what the box score numbers would suggest. I think he was equal game high plus 16 as well. Jackson Rowe was really big yesterday, particularly in the second half. Quieter today. I think he only had 2 points today. So we'll see how he goes. But obviously 2 guys that are currently, or the incumbent 2-way contracted guys, looking to retain their spots heading into next season. The one player that's currently not really involved with the Warriors, he's not on a 2-way contract like Armstrong and Rowe, and obviously he hasn't been drafted either like Will Richard. But Isaiah Mobley, the older brother, in fact, of Evan, intriguing. Really, really intriguing. Like, so he moves a lot like Evan. Like, if you look at him at a glance, he does move like Evan Mobley, except he's shorter and he's stockier, which probably doesn't help him, particularly on the defensive end. But he's got a lot of the same mannerisms kind of thing. He's got really excellent footwork and finish around the paint. He hit a three yesterday. He can handle the ball a bit. Like, he had this play today where I think he might have got the rebound. He dribbled the ball up in transition and then kind of got to the paint, pump fake, like up and under layup. And I was like, man, like he just took the ball the length of the floor there and did that. He's played 3 years in the league already. There's something about it. And I think it's part of it is just like he looks a bit like his brother. And his brother's obviously Depoy, an absolute star for the Cavs. It's like, man, there's something there. Something there. And for a team whose center rotation is still very much up in the air, obviously, we think Al Horford is going to be making his way to the Warriors. But I don't know. Isaiah Mobley potentially, so 3 years in the league, which means he's still eligible for a two-way spot. Maybe that's a player that you should be bringing to training camp, at least based on the first couple of games of some league. We'll see, wait and see how he goes. Obviously, Alex Tui, really looking forward to watching him play. He has not played yet. Yesterday, him and Will Richard obviously remained out because they had to wait for the trade to be finalized, which was earlier today. I'm not sure why Alex Tui didn't play today. But hopefully we see him on Tuesday, I think, in the next game at the California Classic. Also, last Summer League takeaway, shout out to LJ Cryer, who had a really, really big game today. Big first half, 4 first half threes, had 19 points, team high 19 points for the game on 5 of 7 3-point shooting in, I think, 23 minutes. Came after he had 8 points on 2 of 3 3-point shooting yesterday against the Lakers. So he's 7 of 10 from distance. And it's not really a flash in the pan when you think about the fact that I think he shot 42.4% with Houston in college last season, had 19 points in the national championship game against Will Richard and the Florida Gators. So LJ Cryer, just continue to monitor him because he can shoot it. He's a bucket getter. He can shoot the ball. Question marks on his defense and like he's undersized at 6'1", but he can shoot it. He can shoot it. So, in fact, I see someone's Empire's already mentioned LJ Cryer in the chat. So let's I'll get into your comments here. Sorry, I've been going for 22 minutes. We'll get to the comments and then we'll go from there. Just Below says, another day, another trade. Oh, wait. How do the rookies look if you've been keeping up with the Summer League? Yeah, Tui obviously hasn't played. Richard I thought was really, really good today. Again, the shooting numbers weren't great. He was only 2 of 8 from distance, but I thought he was really good, particularly on the defensive end of the floor. Empire said LJ Cryer is a good shooter. He's just too short, and the Warriors don't need any more short players. Good point. Just Below says, how's Tui? Hasn't played yet, as Empire says. Andrew the GOAT, Mike Dunleavy is the worst GM ever. I think we have to wait. Like, I know it's frustrating. I know it's hard to be patient when all these teams are making other moves and you see the Lakers just announced the signing of DeAndre Ayton and all this different stuff. But I think we got to wait till the end of, we got to wait technically until the start of training camp, see what this roster actually looks like. And what I would say is that while it's frustrating the Warriors haven't made any moves, there's still good players available. So you think Horford, we think he's coming to the Warriors. A guy like DeAnthony Melton, who might be going to the Lakers maybe, but he's still like, is he potentially on the Warriors' radar still? And then you got a bunch of these buyout guys. Dame, we know the Warriors have expressed interest in Dame. Bradley Beal looks like he's going to get a buyout with the Phoenix Suns. It's been reported previously that the Warriors would have interest in him if he was bought out. I don't know. I don't mind Bradley Beal on a cheap contract. Yes, on 50 plus million, no one wants to borrow that. But he still averaged 17 points a game last season, shot nearly 50% from the field. I think he was 37% from 3. Like, I'd be all in for Bradley Beal. Then you got look at Washington. So Washington have a bunch of guys. Now, I'm not sure they're going to be bought out in the offseason, but potentially, I suppose, closer to mid-season deadline next year. Middleton, Marcus Smart. They've just traded for CJ McCollum, obviously. I feel like I'm missing someone there. but there's some buyout options there. And then I've also seen some speculation. This would be a big one. Vucevic, buyout option, maybe. Bulls seem like they've been trying to trade him for the last couple of months here and haven't been able to. Like, why would the Bulls, if the Bulls really can't get anything and they come to that conclusion on the trade market, why would they keep him? I don't know. And we know the Warriors have had interest in Vucevic. I don't think I'd want Vucevic now making $21.5 million, but if he's bought out and he's available on a minimum, I'm taking Nikola Vucevic. I'm taking Vucevic in addition to Horford. And probably saying, all right, TJD, you might have to be involved in a trade or something. Maybe you have 4 centers. I don't know. But I take Vucevic on a minimum. Absolutely, you would. He'd have a big market. So yeah, my point is there's still plenty of options here, I think, open to the Warriors, and more options could become available as we go along here. Just Blow says, please don't tell me he's injured already. Well, there was an assistant coach. I saw a tweet before, an assistant coach for the Summer League squad that is kind of unsure as to why Tui isn't playing, which is weird. But it doesn't sound like he's injured to me. Andrew the Goat says, this Warriors front office is literally the worst front office. No trades, no big signings. This front office acts like we don't want to win. Again, I'm trying to preach a little bit of patience here. Young West says, if LJ Cryer can be a Ben Gordon or Isaiah Thomas type scorer, he can definitely be used disregarding his height, maybe. Sorry, again, I'm just checking notifications on my watch. I've been doing that for the last week, and none of it's really been to do with the Warriors, unfortunately. Josh says, anyone that complains about Kerr, the GM, the front office, instead of winning is, how about you apply for the job? Just Blow says, where's the application? Andrew says, does Mike Dunleavy know it's free agency? This team hasn't made any trades or moves. Wake up. Again, they're not going to make any free agency signings until the Kaminga thing's sorted. That's just facts. Like, he has to be the domino that falls for these other moves to happen. Because as I said before, if they make other signings and hard cap themselves and don't exactly know what financially is available to them, then there is a threat of losing Kaminga for nothing. And this is the thing, like, we're frustrated and we're losing patience, but would you rather the Warriors lose Kaminga for nothing or make a bad trade, or wait, take the necessary time and either find the best trade and a good trade, or re-sign Kaminga on a contract that is favorable to the franchise? And I'm frustrated, yeah, sure, and I'm lacking a bit of patience, but I'm also aware that ultimately I want this team to be the best it can be, and the best way to do that is to wait and make the right decision when it comes to Kaminga, whether that be re-signing him ultimately or executing a sign and trade. Young West says, are we actually surprised the Warriors haven't made any moves this offseason? No. Again, down to the Kaminga situation. Lucky Jelly says, I want Mike Dunleavy to do something, not just fart around. I miss Bob Myers. I'm so tired of Mike Dunleavy, man. I wish we got DeAndre Ayton for as cheap as the Lakers did. He has so much talent in rebounding and scoring. He was the first pick for a reason, I think. Yeah, like, I would have liked Ayton, no doubt, certainly. But I think, again, if you'd signed Ayton by this point, then you would have been in the same situation again. And this is just the issue. And I think when you're looking at the Kaminga situation right now, I think the biggest gripe you could possibly have is that the Warriors didn't settle this sooner, either by, I guess it's not their fault that Kaminga didn't sign the 5-year 150. Like, we can't really hang that against the franchise. If they offered 5-year 150 and Kaminga didn't take it, well, that's his fault, to be honest. Like, we probably shouldn't hang that on the franchise. But I don't know, should they have traded him before the deadline? What was available? We don't know. Like, I think it's just the reality of restricted free agency. And you can say you can be frustrated and whatever else, but all restricted free agents are in this position. Like, there was the report, Quentin Grimes in Philadelphia, not really close to a resolution there. Josh Giddey and the Bulls, same thing. Right. So this is just what it is, unfortunately. But the one thing I am hopeful about is that there are still free agents available here that are not too bad. Right now, I said a couple of live streams ago, you look at some of the options, they're not great. But this Beal thing's coming up here. The Dame thing's already happened. He's going to be a free agent, albeit he won't be playing until after the All-Star break, you'd imagine. I think there's some other veteran guys you look on teams around the league who might become available. So we'll wait and see. Sham says Bob Myers would have screwed this team even worse with his terrible draft picks. That is a bad trade, especially against the new CBA. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully the Warriors get even more valuable with these late second round picks with Richard and Tui. Brody Bruge says they have no salary to offer any players. Oh, why you're crying in here and hating on Mike? It's a good point. It's a good, like they've got the taxpayer mid-level exception essentially right now, and I think that's just going to Horford. That's just going to Horford when they work out what they're doing with Kuminga. Macchiano says, "What do you think about Isaiah Mobley?" Yeah, talked about him before. He's intriguing. He's really intriguing. He's had 3 years in the league already with Cleveland and Philadelphia. Hasn't really worked out for him. I don't know. Like he's defensively probably not great, and his rebounding numbers in the first couple of games aren't great. But his ability to handle the ball, his footwork inside, ability to finish, stepped out and hit a 3 yesterday. He's got some skill level on the offensive end, and he just moves well, I think. And he's a bigger type, but he moves exactly like his brother to me. Like it's the same running gait and stuff like that. It's weird, but he's got some stuff. Mike says, sorry, I missed a few comments here. Just Blow says, I'd rather no moves than bad moves, I guess. Absolutely. Mike says, quick update on the Nuggets Jonas issue. Apparently locked on Nuggets. Matt Moore, among others, said tonight there's a lot more nuance than what Shams reported today. Jonas' agent is Jeff Swartz, who also happens to rep Jokic and Jamal Murray, among others. Interesting. Bruce says, people want JK for Vooch just to make a move. Yeah. I mean, if you wanted a move, the Warriors could have accepted the Kings' offer of Devin Carter, Dario Saric, and 2 second-round picks. I'm pretty sure we didn't want that. And so, again, as Just Below says, like, you'd rather no moves than bad moves. Zeb says, Kaminga is out here. He wants to play minutes. He can't get that with the Warriors. But the Warriors have to agree. So when you say Kaminga is out of here, well, the Warriors have to open the door for him. They can very easily shut the door and say, no, you're not going anywhere. Like, they have leverage in this situation. And for those of you that didn't catch the first 10, 15 minutes of the live stream, go back and watch or listen to it. I kind of responded to all the weird stuff and just plain misinformation that I think Kings fans have been going with on social media. Just Blow says, if JK says his value isn't where he thinks, take less and shows out for us. That would be huge for trade deadline. Yeah, which I think he's not going to. The other thing about the qualifying offer is that comes with a no trade clause essentially. So you don't want him to take the qualifying offer, but if he took a cheaper contract, that'd be very nice. Like if he took 3 years, 60 with a 3rd-year player option, maybe. I don't know. Potentially that could be on the cards. I don't. It's gonna be fascinating because I still don't exactly know which way this is going to go. I still think it's pretty 50-50 whether he's on the team or not next season. I'd probably lean, and Jake Fisher said it was 65-35 a few days ago. I think I'd still lean with him more likely being on the team, but I feel like my opinion on that just changes depending on what side of the bed I wake up on, to be honest. Lucky Jelly says, I say keep Kaminga, we need scoring as we saw when Steph got injured. Josh says, well, Will Richard is ready to play. He's like a combination of Poole, Swag, and DeJounte Murray. Underrated defense. Man, combo of Poole and DeJounte Murray, that's a pretty good player. Yeah, we'll wait and see, but it was a very promising start from him today. Mr. Level says, Thomas Bryant. I think obviously the Horford. I think you can go into next season with Horford, Post, and TJD. I'm happy with that. And then if you want another one, then I'd probably wait and see if anything happens around the Vucevic Chicago situation and if a buyout could be possible there. Lucky Jelly says, I also wish we kept Kobe Bryant since he was the best shooter in the draft, or drafted Maxine. What's his? I don't even know how to pronounce that second name. The big French guy who went the 42nd pick. The Warriors could have had access to him. He was the 4 or 5 year college prospect who started to shoot some threes and stuff. It would have been interesting, but I just don't think the Warriors were ever going to take another big man in the draft, given they've already got Quentin Post and Trace Jackson Davis as young centers. Josh says, Anthony Slater just reported earlier that the Kings had the strongest interest on JK. Hopefully we can get Keegan. It's a done deal. Yep. Well, that's like, it's almost, to me, it's almost Keegan or nothing. And Kings fans can get angry about that, right? And rightly so. Like, if I'm the Kings, I don't want to give up Keegan Murray for Jonathan Kuminga. I want both of them. That's completely fine. But the Warriors own when you say own the player, they have the player in Jonathan Kuminga. And as I said before, like they can shut the door on him leaving. He can say he wants to go to the Kings. The Kings can say we want Jonathan Kuminga. But for all the reasons that I pointed out again at the start of this live stream, the Warriors can say just no, like we're keeping you. Like you are a restricted free agent. That restricts you from easily moving to another team. If we want to allow it, if we get something of value that we can get back in a sign and trade, then we will allow it. We will make that happen. But we have leverage here, right? You are still currently really, even though you don't have a contract, you're still tied to this team. Bruce says Brian is a certified bum. Bit stiff. He had a nice little bounce back season with the Pacers and did some stuff in the playoffs. I don't think I want him, but anyway. Lucky Jelly, Mike Dunleavy overpaid for Jimmy Butler, paying that extra $15 million hurt than his usual $45 million. I think that's a fair point to make. I think he also the Butler thing to me is like, well, would you rather be going through the same situation with Butler? Imagine if the Warriors had to deal with Kuminga and Butler right now, and Butler would be different because he'd be unrestricted. Now, whether or not there'd probably still be some kind of sign and trade there because I'm not sure the Nets would have interest in Jimmy. I don't know, but the Warriors, as Butler being an unrestricted free agent, would have much less leverage and would probably just have to take whatever they could in a sign and trade scenario. So you just had to pay overs on his contract basically to ensure that he would be happy and that he would be staying with the franchise beyond the end of last season. And I think that's just the payoff that you had to make. And that's just the reality of the situation. Lucky Jelly says the Kings offer is just disrespectful in my opinion. Yeah, rather comical. It's funny, genuinely funny. Sham says they had no choice but to pay him that. Both sides needed each other, especially the Warriors who look like garbage before Butler's arrival. Fair point. Bruce says no overpay. $75 million a year for Booker is an overpay. Yeah, it's just crazy money in the league these days. Lucky Jelly says Zach LaVine for $20 million cheaper. I'm like the Kings are trying to get rid of LaVine. Like this, I'm very, very happy the Warriors ended up getting Jimmy Butler over Zach LaVine. Very, very happy with that scenario. And I think if you think otherwise, just look at the fact that Sacramento are trying to trade LaVine right now and would ideally get off his contract if they could. And look at the fact that the Warriors were a very average, middling, crap team basically before Jimmy Butler's arrival, and then he took them along with Steph, right, along with Draymond, to the second round of the playoffs and had an unbelievable record following his arrival. Zeb says he will get offered more than 7.9 on the market, around 20 million. I don't see the Warriors matching it. If he gets a $20 million per year offer, let's say he gets 3 years, 60, the Warriors will absolutely match. The last thing that they are doing is losing him for nothing, unless Brooklyn come in for some reason that doesn't look forthcoming at this point. Unless Brooklyn come in and say here's 30 to 35 million a year. $20 million, the Warriors are saying, yeah, fine, you're back with us. We're matching that. There's just like this idea that the Warriors won't match it. Like they can sign Kaminga to a $20 million per year deal and stay under the second apron. That is possible, right? Like this idea from Kings fans again, that the Warriors would go into second tax apron hell is just not true. Like that's just a lie. Like you look at the active payrolls of both teams right now, and they're basically in the same situation. So are you saying that the Kings would also be in second tax apron hell? I guess you would say, well, they're like a sign and trade would happen, so they'd be shedding some salary to bring Kaminga in. But still, the Warriors, if Kaminga gets a $20 million per year deal, the Warriors can do that. They can match that and stay under the second apron. Mike says Jimmy would have likely ended up elsewhere if the Warriors didn't max him out. Absolutely. Lucky Jelly says, I'm just tired of Butler. He's like a baby with his money. He needs to realize money isn't everything, and his contract is hurting the Warriors right now with limited cap space. The Jimmy Butler honeymoon phase at the Warriors is officially over. Some fans starting to get off him a little bit. I can absolutely see your point. I can absolutely see your point that if he'd signed $10-15 million per year less than what he got, then the Warriors would be in a much better position. I can absolutely get that point. But I still think they're okay financially with their current spot. And Jimmy was really impactful for the Warriors after his arrival. Absolutely. And helped them make the playoffs and created, we didn't get to where we wanted in terms of making the West Finals or potentially going even further than that. But it still created a much better level of basketball and much more enjoyment for us as fans over the final months of the season than what it would have otherwise been. And I think Jimmy deserves a lot of credit for that and maybe deserves that little bit of extra money that he got, particularly given the situation where he could have been an unrestricted free agent and left for nothing. Zeb says 20 mil for a person who doesn't fit on this roster in their eyes. Why would they keep him to D&P him if everyone is healthy? He wouldn't be getting he got D&Ps in must-win playoff games to start with, right? Must win. He would not be getting D&Ps. He also got D&Ps when he was on a rookie contract. Very, very different when a guy is on $20 million. The idea of D&Ping a guy on $20 million, the optics around that are very different. And also the start of the season, there's no way he'd be getting D&Ps. Like, that's just this idea that he'd be getting DNPs is just like, it's stupid. Like, he just wouldn't. Like, Steve Kerr was using 13-man rotations at the start of the season, and you think he's going to start next season DNPing Jonathan Kaminga on $20 million? Come on. Like, really? And this, again, I'll go back to my point that I made earlier in the live stream. Just because my Ferrari doesn't fit in the garage doesn't mean I'm trading the Ferrari for a Toyota Corolla. It's, 10 cents on the dollar, right? You don't trade a good asset that's valuable for a piece of crap. You just don't do that. And that Kings offer was an absolute piece of crap, right? And so therefore the Warriors will say, yeah, we're willing to get rid of Jonathan Kuminga if we get something of value back. Otherwise, we're happy to have him back on $20 million per year, and we'll wait and see what happens. Okay, we'll see how it works. Because I think Jonathan Kaminga on $20 million, that's not a massive overpay, in my opinion. And I think once he becomes trade eligible, you could probably deal that fairly comfortably. $20 million today's NBA, that's not a heap. It's not a lot. Particularly the Warriors have all their future draft assets. Like, I don't know. Tyler McNair says if Horford signs, is he our starting 4 or 5? He'd be the starting 5 alongside Draymond. Sham says if the Warriors really wanted to be above the second apron, they would have signed 2 players by now. Not true. Not true, because if you're above the second apron, you don't have access to the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, right? You don't have, if you're above the second apron, you only have the minimum contracts, right? Al Horford, by the sounds of it, wants the taxpayer mid-level exception, $5.7 million. I'm sorry to reiterate the point to people that were listening earlier, but if the Warriors sign Al Horford right now to $5.7 million, they are hard capped at the second apron. They cannot legally go above the second apron. If a team then comes in and offers Jonathan Kaminga a substantial contract, the Warriors can't legally match it. Therefore, if they were to sign Horford right now, they would be putting themselves at the mercy of other teams and Kaminga, right? And potentially losing Kaminga for nothing. That's why they've not signed Horford or anyone else to this point, because they want to retain the financial flexibility just to make sure they know what they're doing with Kaminga, what they have available to them in terms of finances and roster spots for that matter, if a sign and trade was to happen. Lucky Jelly says Jimmy Butler was underwhelming, scared to take shots in playoffs when it mattered most. Yes, he had moments where you would have absolutely loved him to be better. He also had 38 points in a play-in game against the Memphis Grizzlies. Like, are we just going to forget that? Like, he had some bad games, some games where you would have loved for him to be more aggressive. Absolutely. He also had some big games that absolutely helped us. The last game against the Clippers in the regular season, yes, we lost it, but he also had 30, right? He had 38 in the playing game against the Grizzlies to secure the 7th seed. Just Blow says, yes, Butler wanted more money, but at the same time, he re-energized Steph and Dre, and that's priceless for team success. I feel the other fans forget he played with a back injury come the playoffs. Yeah, he also dealt with an injury that he probably would have been out for a few weeks if it wasn't the playoffs. After that hard fall in, game 2 against the Rockets. Tyson says, Kumbucker should have signed the $30 million deal they offered him. Now he's not sniffing nowhere near that money. Absolutely. Bruce says Butler was hurt. Fair. Marcus says Kaminga is between $12-15 million per year. I think that'd be a great deal. If the Warriors got him back on a 12, I just don't see him taking that. I could see 20. I could see him begrudgingly taking 20 and the Warriors saying, yeah, like we're offering that. We'll give you a 3-year, 60, 30-year player option or something. Lucky Jelly says, I'm not a big fan of Al Horford. He's not a great scorer or rebounder. No, but he just perfectly complements what the Warriors have in terms of they need a floor spacing 5. Right. You've got Jimmy Butler, who doesn't take threes, and when he does, not a great percentage. You've got Draymond Green, who will take some threes occasionally, but defenses won't respect him. Right. You need a stretch 5. And I think Al Horford, even this deep into his career, is a better option for a team that's trying to contend for the playoffs than Quentin Post, who's got defensive and rebounding concerns and who's very inexperienced and going into his second year. So it's not about, like, you look at Al Horford's box score numbers, then they don't jump off the page to you. He averages, 9.6 rebounds, but I think the fit on this team is excellent. He's also a veteran leader, and like you've just lost one in Kevon Looney. Like, I think he can be pretty important for this team, and it's why they've gone so hard after him. He's also just a winner. Like, he's been such a big part of deep playoff and a championship team in the Celtics last year. Like, he just impacts winning, right? And I think it would be a big inclusion. Andres says how quickly they forget how down bad this team was looking before the trade. Miracle second half of the season. Absolutely. GSW says Jimmy's a great player, but not worth 60 million per year, more like 35 to 40. Well, he's not on 60. He's on 2 years, 111. So it's like 50, 55. You still got a point. Don't get me wrong. But I think you've got to look. You can say Jimmy Butler's not worth $55 million a year. And that's fine. That's very true, I think. But you've also got to look at the situation as a whole, right? You can't just look at the player. You've got to say the situation where he could have been an unrestricted free agent and left for nothing, where the Warriors were absolutely crap before the trade and really desperate to just do something of substance. And in order to do that something of substance, they needed to give him this contract, right? Like, you got to look at the overall landscape of the scenario, not just is the player worth this amount. Josh Blow says, do we think Loon gets a tribute? I'm going to be a little upset. Yeah, absolutely. He'll get a tribute for sure. Yeah, Andres says that. Zeb Bates says, Kaminga is meeting with all the teams interested this week and he wants to play big minutes. The deal will get done. Warriors have no shot in keeping him. I don't know what you mean by no shot. Like, they have every shot in the world of keeping him. Why couldn't they keep him? Right? Like, they have leverage. They can say we're matching any offer or we're just not agreeing to any sign and trade, right? Like, there's no shot of keeping him. That's just flat out false. Now, there's a very good chance he still leaves and there's a sign and trade that takes place. But this idea that there's no chance of keeping him, like, they've got every chance in the world to keep him, right? They have got leverage in this scenario. Again, just people that haven't heard, just go back and listen to the first 15, 20 minutes of this live stream. Marcus says, Al Horford is a great leader. He can help both TJD and Post. That's why he's needed. Absolutely. Lucky Jelly says, Butler in East made him look like he was Curry or Giannis because East is weaker than the West. Mr. Level says, TJD is not an NBA player. I'm very interested to see what happens with TJD because his rookie year was outstanding, fantastic. Second year, far less so. Kind of makes me a little bit nervous about what QP will do in his second year, which is exactly why the Warriors are going after Al Horford and maybe could do with another kind of 4-5 big man as well, maybe. So TJD, like, at his best when he's playing aggressively, can block shots, can throw down dunks, be a real presence in the paint on both ends of the floor. He's also only 6'9". He's undersized. His finishing around the rim on layups is terrible. He doesn't have a jump shot. Like, there are some real limitations there that have me questioning whether he's a long-term NBA player or not. So we'll wait and see. Marcus says TJD is a tween. He's athletic. He's a pretty good defender. Just Blow says if Post bulks up, TJD is done. Rancuno says is Horford's locked in to sign with us? He's not locked in. We haven't got any official confirmation or reporting of that, but I think there's a general consensus here that, and Mark Stein reported today, that Al Horford will end up with the Warriors, and that I think we all think at this point that the weight on it is because of the Kuminga situation. Absolutely. Dying 1234 says TJD got exposed. He doesn't have other ways to score, just dunks. That's fine in the right system, right? Like if you're a defensive minded center who protects the rim and blocks shots, and all you do on the other end is catch lobs or a few pick and rolls here and there or running the floor, that's fine. That can be a valuable long term NBA player. But in the Warriors system, again, when you got Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green who don't space the floor, and a Draymond Green who has very, very real offensive limitations, and even Jimmy has limitations in terms of his shooting, you need more of an offensive-minded big man there. And TJD, unfortunately, isn't that. So we'll see. Maybe he can play some backup minutes next season. I mean, he started the last 3 games of the playoffs, which is just wild, really, when you think about it. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe he has a big off season. Can he develop some parts to his game? I don't know. We'll see. Josh Blow says still nothing new about Dame. Nah, he'll take his time. I think there might be a signing this offseason. I'm not sure he'll wait necessarily all the way till next, closer to the mid-season deadline when he's coming back. But we'll wait. The Beal thing to me is interesting because suddenly I think Beal will definitely leapfrog Dame in terms of veteran all-star guards that teams want, simply because Beal will, he's fit and available and ready to go as, the start of next season, which I think makes him much more valuable. And be interesting to see what he's willing to take contract-wise as well after his buyout with the Suns. Ren Kuna says, how likely do you think JK will get traded or take the qualifying offer? I think the qualifying offer is a 5% chance, if that, 2% maybe. I think the trade... I'm going to say there's a 35% chance he gets traded. There's a 60% chance he stays. And there's a 5% chance he stays on the qualifying offer, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm going with Jake. Jake Fisher said 65-35 that he stays a few days ago. I think that's about right, I would say, based on what's been reported, and just based on the entire scenario where, again, the Warriors do have the leverage of saying, no, like, you're coming back. Like, what else is he going to do? Like, is he going to sit out and not play? Well, he needs to try and rehabilitate. He needs to build his value to try and get a big contract next offseason, if that's the case. Like, he can't just sit out forever. Like, I think, and the Warriors, it's a waiting game. It's basically, I think it's 3 parties staring at each other. It's the Warriors, it's the Kings, and Kaminga all staring at each other and seeing who will blink first, right? And the Kings are staring at the Warriors, hoping that they take a crap deal and eventually think, oh, we're just going to get this Kaminga situation resolved so we can do other stuff. So let's just do it. And that's the Kings' perspective. And the Warriors' perspective would be like, we're just happy to wait this out. And Kuminga can either re-sign with us or the Kings can give us what we want, which is probably Keegan Murray, which I think is unlikely, which, again, is why I think it's likely that Kuminga stays with the Warriors. Lucky Jelly, why not try to get DeMarcus Cousins back for basically free? Well, isn't he in jail? Not in jail, but he had that punch up over in the Philippines or wherever it was. Not punch up, but he had some interesting stuff go on with supporters over there. Rancuna says Beal has not played more than like 50 games for multiple seasons now, so I'm not sold on him. I'm absolutely sold on him if he's making the mid-level exception at 5.7. Now, what does that mean for Horford in that scenario? I don't know. Brent says, I keep thinking how Kobe wanted off the Lakers once upon a time. Isn't that JK's idol? Good point. Jalen says, do you think we'll keep Moody? Yeah, I think so. Now, he's not absolutely locked in. I think you could definitely explore trade scenarios. I think if there was a potential deal on the table where you could deal Moody and a pick for Kobe White, you'd certainly be intrigued with that. Whether Chicago would go for it, I don't know. That would probably be my ideal Moses Moody, Kobe White trade, I suppose. But I think more likely than not, he'll be on the roster next season. Just Blow says, do you think the Warriors can afford to lose Moody as a point of attack defender? Yeah, maybe not. I think depends what happens with GP2 if you bring him back. Obviously, he's going to be in a more limited role than Moody would be. I think it's probably likely that Moody stays. I'm going to finish it up here, guys. Been going for nearly an hour. Just get to these last few comments. The Warriors need a center. They are hurting themselves holding Kaminga hostage because him leaving is inevitable anyways. What do you mean by inevitable? Like, I think does Jonathan Kaminga play out his career with the Warriors? I find that very unlikely. I don't think he's playing his entire career with the Warriors. So from that perspective, yeah, him leaving is inevitable, but it doesn't mean the Warriors are just going to let him walk for nothing. So I don't know, like, yeah, like you're not going to act rashly and make a bad trade just because him leaving at some point or another is inevitable. Like I think there's a chance he gets re-signed and then he gets traded in the next, once he becomes trade eligible or somewhere down the line. Like that's fine, but I think the Warriors want it to be on his terms. Just because it's inevitable doesn't mean you want to do it without some control in the situation. Josh Blow says we should have traded Kuminga for Lonzo Ball. I disagree. I don't think I would have done that. Alonzo would have been terrific for the Warriors. Don't get me wrong, but I think Kuminga's worth more than that. Lucky Jelly says if we get Beal on a minimum due to buyout, I'm all for it. Absolutely. Bruce says Warriors need wings and a second PG more. Depends what happens with Kaminga in terms of do you need that size and athleticism at the 3-4 spot. We'll wait and see. I think backup point guard is interesting. Do they think that's a real desperate need, or do they think that Jimmy Butler is kind of their de facto backup point guard, and if Draymond's in second units with him, that's enough ball handling and playmaking? Rancuna says, "What's your grade on Will Richard game so far?" Just on his debut today, if I was to grade it, maybe a B to B plus. I thought defensively he was really, really good. I thought offensively his ability to attack the rim, get to the paint, and draw some fouls, go 8 of 8 from the line, which we know the Warriors before the Jimmy Butler trade had their issues with free throw shooting. So to see a guy go 8 of 8 was very refreshing, no doubt about that. Just wasn't the perfect game because he shot 3 of 10 from the floor and 2 of 8 from 3. So the shot wasn't quite there. But hopefully that comes along in summer league. We see a lot of these young guys. Dalton Connect. I mean, man, he's had an absolute mare for the Lakers. The young kid who went 20th overall to Miami has struggled the first couple of games. So we see some of these. Even a guy like VJ Edgecombe. I mean, he had 26 points yesterday, or 27, but he did on 26 shots. Like some of these youngsters in summer league, some of the efficiency numbers aren't great. So it's just, I'm not even sure that's an out of the box horrific performance from Will Richard when a lot of these young guys are throwing up pretty average shooting games. Lucky Joe says Kaminga is one of our best draft picks, like Jordan Poole. No, Poole at 28, much greater value on a much better pick than Kuminga, because I think all of us probably sit here today and say we'd prefer Franz Wagner. So I'm not sure he was a great pick, Kuminga, but I also don't think he was a terrible one. I think you look back and think, okay, the fit is the biggest issue. I think Franz Wagner would be a much better fit right now. I mean, it's revisionist history. Who knows how much opportunity, what Franz Wagner would have done in the Warriors system. We can look at it now and say it'd be a much better fit. Again, just because a guy doesn't fit doesn't mean you toss him out for nothing at the end of the day. Mr. Level says, Connect, not effing with the Lakers after getting traded and untraded. Confidence probably shattered. Good point. Not doing much for his trade value right now. Lucky Jelly says, Poole is my personal favorite. I was so mad when Draymond Green punched him. Man, could that guy score? Yeah, he'd certainly be helpful for the Warriors right now. Again, helpful making $30 million. Maybe not. But I always, follow JP's career, wish him nothing but the best. And, there was a point there where he was a Steph disciple and he was going to be the one to take the reins off Steph. And the fact that didn't happen is disappointing and sad in some ways. And, very, very regrettable from a Draymond Green standpoint. So it's disappointing, but we can't do anything about it now. I'm going to finish it up there, guys. Been going for nearly an hour now. Thanks to everyone who has tuned in and commented. Those of you that are watching later on replay, much appreciated for your support as well. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Let's see what happens in the next 24 hours, whether we do another one of these at 2 o'clock my time tomorrow or 9 o'clock Pacific time. Wait and see what happens in the next 24 hours. Hopefully there's some movement on the Kaminga situation. Again, until that happens, I don't think we're going to get any movement elsewhere with signings, with Al Horford or anyone like that. So again, we'll wait and see. Hopefully there is some news, some stuff floating about, and we can get together again this time tomorrow. But until that time, enjoy the rest of your weekend. For those of you in America late on Sunday, hope you all enjoyed your 4th of July celebrations, whatever that may have entailed. And I'll see you on the next live stream.